we're very pleased to announce our new StarSense Explorer Dobsonians. The telescope tube features a larger aperture than the other StarSense Explorer telescopes. It also has a 2-inch Crayford focuser that accepts both 2-inch and 1.25" format eyepieces, and also has a custom pointing knob to help you precisely aim the telescope at your target. Both the tube and base have carry handles at their balance points, and of course, the exciting StarSense Explorer dock. Simply place your smartphone in the dock and launch the app. Choose from the best objects to view, then just move the telescope to follow the arrows to your target. When it's ready to view, the bullseye turns green. It's easy to do because of the patented StarSense technology.
Hi everyone! We hope you'll enjoy the presentations we're bringing to you virtually from the Texas Star Party. We wanted to thank everyone who has taken the time to make this event what it is. TSP is a 501c3 nonprofit organization, and it's made possible every year by the help of people just like you. If you like these presentations and would like to help further the Star Party, you can throw a few bucks or a few thousand in our virtual tip jar by donating today. And it's tax deductible too. Make sure to share these videos with your friends, any clubs you're a part of, and most of all, remember to have fun. We hope to see you in person next year.
Thank you, Carl. Carl, stick around for a minute. I would like to add on to that. I've been coming to this star party for 33 years now, and this man, we talk throughout the year, and the volunteers have done a lot of work, but Carl has worked the last 12 months, 12 to 15-hour days at times. He has worked and worked and worked to do all the little minutiae, the things that most of us don't realize that are taking place, like dealing with contracts, dealing with the ranch, dealing with food, dealing with insurance, dealing with things that none of us know about. He's been dealing with it all year. So let's give him a big round of applause. Thank you, Carl. And the other thing I'd like to say is we've got bad weather. We got rain now, and the forecast is maybe we may have another few nights of this. I've learned over the years the people are as important as the night sky. It took me a while to learn that, but you folks are as important as looking at the sky. All of us have one and one only interest, and that's astronomy. And this room is full of people with like-minded interests, and you can learn from one another. So if you can't look through your telescopes, go visit somebody. Make new friends, and you'll find you'll enjoy yourself immensely if you do so. So with that in mind, I'm going to go ahead and get started. This year's Advanced Observing Program is called Within, and the advanced program in general is not to get people to go out and buy big telescopes, but to use the telescopes that they have and successfully observe things they might not think that they could have seen in the past. And I've seen it over and over and over where people push themselves and they become better observers for doing so, and that's one goal of the advanced program. The other goal is education. If you look at a telescope and you see something faint and fuzzy, and that's all you know about it, it's not very interesting. But if you know that it's a galaxy 150 million light years away with a feeding black hole, it's throwing out material, and it's had 10 supernovas in the last 20 years, that makes it an interesting object. So the education aspect is as important as the viewing part of this program. So what is within? Well, we all look at the Orion Nebula in this galaxy. We look at M13 in this galaxy, and they're wonderful objects. But what about looking at those objects in other galaxies? What about looking at detail within other nebula? We've all looked at M82, but how many of you have looked at the H2 regions inside the galaxies? The Orion Nebula inside that galaxy. So, for instance, this is NGC 4051. It's in Canis Venatici, or Venatici, or Venatici, ever how you want to pronounce it. So it's still in the same place. But if you look at this little object here, and you really start observing it, well, you might find that you're looking at something like that. But you're looking at that in another galaxy. This is NGC 6791, and it's a beautiful object in our galaxy. That would be a beautiful object from the Andromeda galaxy if astronomers are over there looking this way. This object here, this bright pink-colored object. If we look at that, this one over here, if we look at that carefully, we might find we're looking at the Orion Nebula in NGC 4051, and that galaxy is 45 million light years away. So if you're a visual observer, that's exciting. I mean, you're looking at something not in the Milky Way, but something in another galaxy, and everyone in this room with your telescope, and I don't care how small it is, you can see these things. If you take the time and the patience to look for them, they're there. So I'm going to kind of sidetrack a little bit. I gave a talk a while back on the Gaia Space Observatory. This is something that a lot of amateurs don't know a lot about, and it's rewriting the astronomical textbooks, the scientific publications. It's an unbelievable tool that the European Space Agency launched in 2013. It's an incredible, incredible satellite that's launched out to the Lagrangian L2 point, which I'll talk about in a second. But no area in astronomy where Gaia has not had an impact. Its accuracy is able to measure the diameter of a period at the end of a sentence that the astronauts would have left on the moon. That's incredible accuracy that's never been seen before. And the reason I'm talking about this is that most amateurs are familiar with the James Webb Telescope because it takes pretty pictures, but people don't know about Gaia because it doesn't take pretty pictures. But the information coming from this satellite is every bit as innovative as what the James Webb is going to show us in the future. It's the most precise 3D space catalog that's ever been made. Its goal is to accurately measure over 1 billion stellar objects down to 21st magnitude, and it's going to target each star at least 70 times over a 5-year period. It surveys 50 million stars a day, 500 million data points a day, 100 high-resolution spectra per second, and it sends back data every 8 hours of every day. So that's pretty heady stuff. And it basically provides 3 functions. Parallax studies, using the diameter of the Earth's rotation around the sun as the base of the triangle. And from that, they can accurately measure the distances to stars with an accuracy of 7 micro-arc seconds, which is a millionth of an arc second. That's equivalent to the diameter of a hair at a distance of 621 miles. There's never been this kind of precision ever before, and it is pouring down rain outside. It also has a spectrometer, which measures proper motions to within 1 kilometer per second out to 11th magnitude. It's got a photometric band, which measures classification of stars and luminosity. And as I mentioned, it's parked at the L2 point, which is about 982,000 miles out, just under 1 million miles out. So it can't be repaired by NASA. But at that point, well, all of the Lagrangian points, there's 5 of them, and these are places where NASA can park a satellite, and they need to make a minimum of adjustments to keep it there. The L2 point matches a centrifugal force to throw something out of the solar system with gravitational force to keep it, so it slows that object in a further out orbit from the sun so that it stays stationary. And its neighbor is the James Webb Telescope. There's the L4 and L5 point are what's called Trojan asteroids. The Earth has 2 of them, one in front and one behind. Jupiter has over 1 million. So these are gravitational places where satellites can be easily parked and maintain their orbits with a minimum of effort. As far as the operation, and I'm going to read some of this because it's pretty incredible. The first release was in 2016. The second one was 2018. The third release was June of last year. Astrometric positions, places where things are, where really are. They've already measured 1.8 billion stars, 14,099 solar system objects. They've measured 500,000 white dwarfs and 1.2 million stars in M31, the Andromeda galaxy. As far as discoveries, they found that most halo stars actually formed locally. They did not come from elsewhere. They found 169,000 astrometric binaries, 6.6 million quasar candidates, 4.8 million new galaxies. They found the Milky Way has 4 arms instead of 2. They found thousands of stars actually change shape. And that doesn't mean the ones that expand and contracts. They physically change shape. They'll be pear-shaped. They'll be whatever. They had no idea that stars do this, but they do. They found 20 hypervelocity stars that are moving almost 1,100 miles per second. These stars are moving so fast that 7 of them are leaving the Milky Way galaxy, and 13 of them are coming from elsewhere to the Milky Way galaxy. They found 13,000 Ghost Rider stars, which are orbiting opposite direction from the Milky Way galaxy. If you look down at the Milky Way, it's rotating counterclockwise. These stars are moving clockwise, which means they probably came from another galaxy somewhere. And they also discovered the Price-Whelan star cluster, and they've finally settled what Omega Centaurus is. We now know that it is an acquired nuclear superstar cluster from another galaxy, that it was not part of the Milky Way galaxy, that the Omega Centaurus did come from somewhere else. A few big discoveries that I thought was big anyway. The Sagittarius dwarf galaxy, or the Sagittarius dwarf spheroidal or elliptical galaxy, whatever you want to call it. It's had 3 times that it has impacted the Milky Way galaxy. 5 billion years ago. And astronomers think that was instrumental because that impact created a compression that they think was responsible for our sun being formed. So, in a way, the Sagittarius dwarf galaxy may be the reason we're here tonight. But the Sagittarius dwarf has impacted the Milky Way galaxy 5 billion, 2 billion, and 1 billion years, and is right now in a polar orbit very close to the Milky Way. And if you look at the Sagittarius constellation, pretty much the whole southern part of the constellation is this galaxy. It also discovered the Antlia 2 dwarf galaxy, which is a ghost galaxy, and it's the lowest surface brightness galaxy that's known. Gaia discovered that 10 billion years ago, a massive impact from another galaxy created the Milky Way galaxy as we know it today. And that colliding galaxy has been called Pontus, and Pontus is the son of Gaia, and Gaia was the goddess of the earth. I don't know if that's where they came up with the name for the satellite, but it fits. They also discovered that the Radcliffe wave is the backbone of the Orion spiral galaxy arm, and for years there's something called Gould's belt, which was a circular matter of gas and dust that went from the South Polar region up through Perseus and then back again. And they couldn't understand why there were gaps in Gould's belt. Well, when Gaia discovered the Radcliffe wave, they found out that it is a wave, 500 light years above the plane and 500 light years below the plane. Those oscillations of the Radcliffe wave is what caused the gaps in Gould's belt. So that was a big discovery that astronomers are excited about. So the thing that I like, because I like looking at open clusters, is it has determined the open clusters that are really part of an open cluster. An open cluster, by definition, formed out of the same molecular cloud at the same time. They have roughly the same chemical content. They're moving through space together and they're gravitationally bound to one another. So if you look at this slide here, NGC 6791, you can see all of the stars are moving at the same proper motion with the same radial velocity, and they're moving through space together in a south-south-west trajectory. The brighter stars, the ones marked in yellow, you can see those are moving in a different direction. So those are not part of NGC 6791. We've never had the accuracy before to be able to determine that, but Gaia has provided that. It's also provided something else that was a shock to people, and that is 25% of the near open clusters are mere chance alignments. They're not really open clusters at all because they're not gravitationally connected to each other and they're not traveling through space together. So that's a huge discovery. And just to show you how some of that is determined, we've known that Brocchi's cluster, or most of us know it as the coat hanger, is an asterism. Well, here's Gaia. Gaia's, if I can get it to come up, there it is. There is the proper motion of the coat hanger. And you can see hardly any two of them are moving in the same direction. That is an asterism. That's a chance alignment of stars that looks to be an open cluster, but they're not affiliated with each other. They're at different distances from one another, and they're traveling through space in all different directions. So that's some of the work that Gaia is providing, and it will be collecting data through 2024. All right, just to show you a little bit about the James Webb Telescope. This is the pillars of creation taken from Earth with a 12-inch telescope. That's a good view. That's an excellent view of the pillars of creation in M16, or the Eagle Nebula. If we look at the same image with the Hubble Space Telescope, that's certainly a lot better. That's the image that pretty much blew everybody's mind when it was taken back, I think in the late 90s, something like that. But the James Webb Telescope goes even better. The James Webb Telescope is an infrared telescope. It lets us see through dust. We can see material we've never seen before. These four stars are not here. You can see through this period here, the stars here. So that's a huge, huge step forward, and this will help us determine what is happening in young, very young stars, protostars, pre-main sequence stars that are still wrapped in their birthing cocoons. We'll be able to see inside of that for the first time. And I put another picture together that is just too beautiful not to show. That. Eat your heart out, Edwin Hubble. You know, I mean, who would have thought we'd ever see something like this? You know, that's the James Webb Telescope view of the Eagle Nebula. These spires that are going up here, those are 4 light years in length. The distance from here to our nearest star, Alpha Centaurus. So that's a little bit about some of the technology that is available. And it's a wonderful time to be an astronomer, to be the recipient of all of this knowledge. And there's much more to come. So we'll go into a little bit about the Advanced Observing Program. These are the pins that we've handed out. This is the pin for this year. Not surprisingly, no one asked me for a pin last night, so it's probably just as well. I've got a good supply of previous year's pins. I've got all of them. I've got all of the handouts for previous years if people want to give a shot for that. I've also got T-shirts for people that have observed all 20 years, all of the observing programs that I have put out so far. And that T-shirt, Amelia, where are you? If you stand up. I could have worn one, but it looks much better on her. That's the T-shirt that we're handing out for people. And Amelia is an unusually spectacular observer. I mean, If anybody wants to learn how to do visual astronomy, it should be a good one to go to. Matthew Delavorius, are you out there somewhere? Stand up. He's got another T-shirt. Matt has done it with an 8-inch telescope. And on some of the programs, he's observed every object on there. I usually start off with 40 objects. People that observe 20 will get a pin. On several occasions, Matt with his 8-inch telescope has done all 40 of them. So don't let the names scare you. Anyone in this room can get one of these observing pins. We call it advanced because it has a lot of things that maybe people have never heard of, but if you give it a try and you have patience with any size telescope, you can complete this program. All right, starburst galaxies. What I'm going to do, in the past, I've reeled off information about 20 different objects or 25 objects, and after a time, they kind of seem to run together. So I'm going to concentrate on a few galaxies, a few active galaxies, and explain what's going on with them and kind of give you an idea of what happens in other galaxies, not just in our Milky Way galaxy, but in other galaxies. And some of these galaxies we call starburst galaxies. And there's no cut and dry, what makes a galaxy a starburst galaxy, except it has an exceptionally high rate of star formation. In some cases, these galaxies have 100 solar masses of formation for new stars a year. Our Milky Way galaxy, on average, forms 3 solar masses of stars per year. So a galaxy that's cranking out 100 new stars a year, that's pretty incredible. These are temporary conditions because these stars form out of gas and they form out of dust. And that gas and dust gets used up. And if you have a galaxy forming 100 stars equivalent to our sun a year, it's going to use up that material pretty quickly. So these are temporary conditions. Anytime you see a starburst galaxy, that hasn't been going on for very long. A lot of these are called OB associations because they're formed out of type O stars, which are the largest, hottest, most massive stars that we know of, stars that may be 75 million degrees temperature, and are large enough that it would fit out to Jupiter if they were in the position of our sun. So these are very hot, massive stars, but they burn out very quickly. Some of the O5 type stars may only last for 6 million years or so. A B-type star may last 30 to 300 million years. An A-type star will last 1 billion years. A F star will last 5 billion years. And a G star, like our sun, will last about 10 billion years. So when we look at a star cluster, we see what the oldest stars are, and when we know how old those stars live, we know how old that star cluster is. So that's the way astronomers determine this. There are 3 types of starburst galaxies, mainly blue compact galaxies, ultraluminous infrared galaxies, and these galaxies have a luminosity in infrared 1 trillion times what our Milky Way galaxy has. So that's a huge, huge number, but there's a lot of them out there. And then there's Wolf-Rayet galaxies. A Wolf-Rayet star is a naked core star that is throwing off its outer hydrogen envelope at a ridiculously inflative amount, explosive almost. These are type O stars that are 25 solar masses or more larger than our sun. They're extremely hot, and before they blow up as supernova, they go through a stage where they expel their outer atmosphere. And in doing so, they destroy everything around them. They're short-lived, about 6 million years or so, and they're pretty prevalent. And one that we see quite frequently here at the Star Party is the Cocoon Nebula, or the Crescent Nebula, NGC 6888. It's up in Cygnus, and it is a beautiful object to look at. Another ultraluminous infrared galaxy is ARP 220. It's very faint when you look at it. It's not very impressive as an object to look at, but it's incredibly powerful. I read a couple of places where they say it's two black holes that are merging, and it has enough power to equal 100 million Milky Way galaxies. That seems incredible. I can't imagine that kind of power. But it has 100 supernova in an area only 500 light years across. So that is an extremely energetic object, and it's an ultraluminous infrared galaxy. So that's a good example. And then NGC 5253 is a blue compact galaxy. These are low metallicity galaxies, but they have a lot of star activity, starburst activity, and they're usually faint and somewhat difficult. Superstar clusters are a type of star clusters that was basically determined by the Hubble Space Telescope. We knew there were large star clusters out there, but we had no idea how big some of these things are. Some of the superclusters in our Milky Way galaxy are the quintuplet cluster and the Arches cluster. These galaxy clusters are within 100 light years of the center of our Milky Way galaxy. The biggest, the most dense cluster that we have in our Milky Way galaxy is Westerlund 1, and it has a total solar mass of 63,000 solar masses. That's the biggest we have in our Milky Way. Some of these other galaxies have star clusters with 3 million solar masses. Much, much bigger than anything that we have here. As such, they can be seen across vast distances, and it's debatable whether they're globular cluster precursors or not. And that depends on something called the initial mass function, or the IMF. If these clusters start off with say over 100,000 stars, and they're closely bound and closely gravitationally bound, when some of them go supernova, it remains to be seen whether they can throw other stars out or not. If there's enough gravity to keep that supernova explosion within the cluster, then it may become a globular cluster. The best thinking is that probably will not happen, and that these clusters will dissipate usually within 10 million years or so. But it's debatable whether these super star clusters will actually form globular clusters, or whether they'll become no clusters at all and eventually dissipate. But these things can alter entire galaxies. I mean, they're huge. They're throwing out material at a ridiculous rate. They're composed of type O and type B stars that are just blasting out the near surroundings, and they're extremely energetic, and it's something that's a fairly new discovery. NGC 4214. This is a galaxy that's just full of new stars that are erupting, that are performing, that are doing all kinds of things. There's basically 3 regions where activity is going on. The central region is only 3 to 4 million years old. Those of you that don't know, our sun is 4.5 billion years old. So a star cluster that's 3 to 4 million years old is a baby star cluster, just formed. And in the center of this galaxy, there's 2 cavities. And one of them is a superstar cluster of 27,000 solar masses. And the other one, the one to the left over here, this one is what they call the OB type association, composed of type O stars and type B stars. And they're also blasting out the material, and you can see both of these are donut shaped. You can see where the material has been blasted out because of these highly energetic stars. The southwest region down here is much younger. These stars, these groupings are only about 2 million years, and it's a grouping of just compact knots, and they haven't had time to really form stars yet. The northwest complex up here, this is just forming. There are no stars there yet. There hasn't been time enough for stars to form in that area as yet. But you can see this in a telescope of just about any aperture if you take the time to do it. And this is kind of a close-up of those regions. The central compact region, this is the two cavities. This is the superstar cluster region, the OB association. This is the southwestern region with the individual knots. And these are star-forming regions, and a lot of those stars are still in their birthing cocoons. They haven't even formed stars yet. So this is activity that you can see in another galaxy with a 8-inch telescope, or maybe even smaller. As far as the young stars and the old stars, the majority of the stars, the young stars, you can see that most of these are in the center, in the central region here, the yellow stars being the young stars. The older stars are scattered pretty much throughout at a random configuration. And as far as star-forming episodes within this galaxy, about 3 billion years ago, you had a prolonged star formation that was the original, the beginning of the star formation in this galaxy. Another star formation episode was 500 million years. 300 million years, you had one everywhere that accounts for the blue stars, the older stars. 8 million years ago was a central starburst, and then 50,000 years ago was the most recent starburst within this galaxy. Of note, they found that clusters become unbound in general within 10 million years. So a lot of these stars, a lot of these 50,000-year-old stars have already gone supernova. If they were type O stars or type B stars, they're gone because they're too big, they're too massive, and they just cannot live that long. They burn through their hydrogen, helium, carbon, oxygen, neon, magnesium, sulfur phase at a ridiculously fast rate, and they end up as supernova. So this is a little bit of the star formation history of this one star, and again, you can see that in a telescope. A quick word about how some of the hydrogen emission structures. Hydrogen alpha versus H2 emission. Hydrogen alpha is energized hydrogen. The Balmer series, where the hydrogen electron is moving from the second to the third energy level and back to the second energy level, but it doesn't leave the hydrogen atom, and as such it glows, and it glows a reddish color, which you can see here with M101. These regions here. The cause of that are the type O and B stars that I've been talking about. Type 2 supernova, stars that are blowing up, or the Wolf-Rayet stars, the O-type stars that are shedding their outer atmosphere. And those are the reasons for the hydrogen alpha emission, and it's the hydrogen alpha emission that we see when we use a nebula filter, essentially. The H2 regions are the ionized hydrogen, where the electron completely leaves the hydrogen atom, and that occurs when we get 13.6 electron volts, and it removes the electron completely from the atom, and that ionization process at some point will reach a state where it will cause the hydrogen alpha emission to glow, and that's what we see. We don't see the ionized hydrogen, but we do see the hydrogen alpha emission. And the Ring Nebula is a prime example. We have ionization in the center, and the hydrogen alpha emission out, which forms the ring, and that's what we see. It takes nearly as much energy to excite the hydrogen atom's electrons from the up to the third energy level as it does the hydrogen atom. So normally when these bright stars are illuminating the area around them, ionization takes place. The antenna galaxy, these are well placed for viewing here at the Star Party. It's in the constellation Corvus, and they're 45 million light years away, and it's close enough that we can see detail within these galaxies with any size telescope. And what happens, these are two galaxies in close proximity that are merging. They're actually colliding with each other. And they're throwing out a tail of debris, which you can see here, and that's why they're called the antenna, because it reminds someone of a bug with its antenna. But how this happens is you have two galaxies that approach one another, and as they get close to each other, they start deforming both galaxies. At some point, the galaxies may go completely through each other, and that's what's happened with the antenna. But when they go through each other, they really mess each other up. And you get the two galaxies in close proximity, and on the side of each galaxy facing the other galaxies, those stars start moving faster in their orbit. And they're moving faster than stars on the opposite side of that galaxy. And what happens is that tends to throw stars out of the galaxy. And as the galaxy rotates, it creates this circular pattern that you see here. And that's exactly what has happened in the antenna galaxy, NGC 4038 and 4039. This is a close-up of the two galaxies. As I say, 45 million light years away, close enough that we can see detail within the galaxy. This is the nearest major merger of two large galaxies. They're still separated by 1 million light years away. The bottom galaxy, NGC 4039, is superimposed over the front galaxy. In the area in the middle, the overlap region, is where most of the activity is taking place, because that's the closest the two galaxies are to each other. As far as the history, how these got to this point, 12 billion years old, 12 billion year old objects outline the surrounding area of the two galaxies all around here. This is the oldest region out here where you see this material. That's the oldest part of the galaxy. 1.2 billion years ago, NGC 4038, the upper galaxy, was a barred gas-rich spiral galaxy. NGC 4039, the bottom galaxy, was a gas-poor type SA galaxy. And the initial encounter between these two galaxies, the first time they collided with each other 600 million years ago, consumed all of the gas in NGC 4039, which is why you see very few star clusters down here as opposed to up here. It had very little gas to begin with, and it lost it at its initial encounter. 900 million years ago, the two galaxies began to approach. 600 million years ago, the galaxies passed completely through each other. And in all probability, no two stars collided, because there's a vast difference of space between stars. So the galaxies passed through each other without any stars actually colliding. 300 million years ago, the tails began to be released from the disk. 15 million years ago, star formation had a major event, and that's pretty much what you see along the western edge of 4038. And 5 million years ago was a star formation that added to that. So that's a little bit about how these galaxies got to where they are today. 400 million years from now, these will be one galaxy, probably an elliptical, one massive elliptical type galaxy. This is a false color image that shows some of the individual star clusters. These are H2 regions. These are where hydrogen is excited so we can see them with our filters. And by the way, you can put a filter on this galaxy and see these H2 regions like you put a filter on the Orion Nebula also. But this shows individual star clusters. And I've listed out over here information about each of the star clusters, and without wading through all of those, I just want to direct your attention to some of the few things. I was talking about superstar clusters. The largest one in our Milky Way is Westerlin 1, 63,000 solar masses. Well, here's one, 2 million. 2 million solar masses, 2 million solar masses, 3 million, 3 million. Those are larger than any globular cluster that we have. 3 million solar masses is an unbelievable number. And astronomers are thinking, well, maybe all open clusters started out like that in the beginning. These are interacting galaxies that are compressing gas and dust that are creating these star clusters. But might all star clusters start out this big, and as they gradually lose stars and lose material, they get smaller and smaller and smaller. The star clusters that we have in our Milky Way today may have at one time had the type 2 million, 3 million solar masses. Who knows? But nevertheless, these are huge, huge star clusters, the like of which we do not have in our Milky Way galaxy here. And again, you can see these in your telescopes. This is some of the star-forming regions that they're everywhere. I mean, they're all over these galaxies. 14,000 candidate star clusters, 8,000 young stellar objects. Some of these young stellar objects are still in their birthing cocoons, which the James Webb Telescope hopefully will be able to see through. The overlap region is the main star burst region, and the lower limit to the star formation for the last 20 million years has been 20 solar masses per year. 20 solar masses per year this thing has been cranking out. I mean, our Milky Way, I said earlier, is about 3 solar masses per year. So 20 solar masses per year, this is a star-forming factory that you're looking at. No visual supernova remnants have been found because we can't see them. There are a lot of radio supernova that are visible only in radio wavelengths, but no visual supernova have been found, which is kind of surprising because this is full of young, very energetic stars, and there should be some supernova visible, but so far they have not found any. And again, whether a cluster survives depends on its initial mass function. How many stars were there to begin with, and how gravitationally bound were those stars to begin with? And were they able to sustain subsequent Wolf-Rayet explosions or supernova explosions and stay together as a star cluster? And that's still debatable. We don't know. But star clusters versus globular clusters, whether they become globular clusters or not, remains to be seen. This is a close-up of some of the objects within the antenna, just to show you what some of these star clusters look like. They look just like star clusters in our Milky Way galaxy. The core regions, the core regions of NGC 4038 is 15 to 65 million years old. Very young because of the interaction between the two galaxies. The core region of NGC 4039 is only 15 million years old. Extremely young. So everything in these two galaxies is young, and the reason is because of the interaction between the two galaxies, and that interaction started 600 million years ago. These are some of the objects that are on the advanced observing list that I've got for you folks to look at. I've seen all of these. They're all easy. The most active and energetic one is this one right here, NGC 4039A. It's currently the most active feature of all of the H2 regions, open star clusters in NGC 4038, 39, the antenna galaxies. Oops. Okay, I put this in. A friend of mine, Paul Downing, has a beautiful observatory over in Spain. I've been there. It's just magnificent. It almost made me go over to what we call the dark side. astrophotography. But he does it with a 16-inch telescope. This is an image that he took and he sent to me. And this over here is just a blow-up of this. But you can see he's got all the detail with a 16-inch telescope that I showed you here. He's able to get that with a 16-inch telescope. One other thing I want to talk about is the tidal dwarf. At the end of the southern tail of the antenna is a feature that they're calling a tidal dwarf galaxy. These tails have originated anywhere from 450 to 300 million years ago. Star formation is continuing in each of the tails. The northern tail is older than the southern tail. And there's two populations of stars in these tidal tails. One which came from the galaxies themselves, being thrown out of the galaxy bodies. And then the other is the stars that formed within the tails. These tails have a magnitude of 17.3, and they are extremely faint. Although you can see visually the beginning of the tail, this part here. That's visual in amateur telescopes. A fairly recent discovery is they're not sure this is a tidal tail, because it seems that the tail at this point may be bent backwards away from us. And that would make it look like it's an enhancement of the tidal tail, when in fact it's not a tidal dwarf. It's a bend in the tail. So that debate is raging right now. They don't know if it truly is a tidal dwarf galaxy or if it's a backward bend in the southern tidal tail. But nice thing about astronomy, it'll change. I had a hard time with a lot of this, because you can read 16 professional articles and you get 16 versions of the same thing. So you have to kind of take your pick. I put a blue compact dwarf galaxy in just to show you guys what one looks like. These are very low light, very low metallicity type objects. This one looks like a tadpole, and on the end, on the southwestern end, is 1 Zwicky 49. Initially, this was considered a galaxy, and some papers still consider it a galaxy to this day. But I read a bunch of different papers on it, and it appears that it has a mass of only 400 solar masses. If it has a mass of 400 solar masses, it's probably not a galaxy. It's probably going to be truly an open star cluster. It's located at the end of 28 H2 hydrogen ionized emission regions. Its age is only 5 million years, but it could be a dwarf galaxy 5 million years old. There are 2 ultraluminous X-ray sources within this object, which is very unusual, and it probably is an open cluster, but that debate is raging as well. But I believe it's an open cluster. NGC 4449, this is one of my favorite objects. You can spend all night looking at this object. I mean, this is, you talk about the proverbial train wreck, this is it. Starburst usually occurs in the central regions of galaxies. In this one, it's everywhere. As you can see, those pink areas, those are hydrogen alpha emission regions, which are ionized by type O, type B stars, Wolf-Rayet stars, stars that are going supernova. Those are all causing, those young stars are causing that reddish glow, that hydrogen alpha glow that you're seeing throughout this galaxy. And you can see this in your telescope, and if you put a nebula filter on it, you can see it as well. You know, so that is using a nebula filter in another galaxy. Well, this keeps doing this. Okay. This is some of the objects that I have on the observing list. And the nice thing about NGC 4449 is it's only 12.6 million light years away. So that's close enough to see detail within this galaxy that you might not see in a galaxy that's 100 million light years away. It's a Magellanica type dwarf galaxy, and the stellar formation history of this galaxy began 500 million years ago. It had a stellar eruption. 100 million years ago, it had another one. 20 million years, another one. 10 million years ago, it had a significant star formation period where the stars were forming at a rate 4 times higher than quiescence. And then the latest was 5.6 million years ago, was the most recent one. 5.6 million years is an interesting figure because that's about the same time that stars go Wolf-Rayet, your massive stars. So a lot of those stars are blowing up or getting ready to blow up. So if you guys are supernova hunters, this would be a good place to look because the most recent star formation should start blowing up any day now. And of interest, and this holds not for just this galaxy, but most of the galaxies, the stellar population ages. The older stars that are billions of years old, comprise about 60 to 75% of the stars in this galaxy. If we go down to 100 million year old stars, we're looking at 20-25% of the stars. If we look at the youngest, most massive, brightest stars, which are the ones that are causing all this confusion here, that's only about 1% of the stars. But that 1% is what we see, because those are the brightest stars. Those are the most energetic, massive stars that are performing and are creating these hydrogen alpha glowing patches that we see. There are few supernova and few Wolf-Rayet ejecta that are found. They don't understand why that is. The leading theory is if it is a Wolf-Rayet star or a supernova explosion, we won't see it as long as it's hot. We have to wait until it cools off in order to be able to see it. So if we go back to these 5 to 6 million year old stars here, some of those may have already exploded, but they have to cool down before we can see it. Or at least that's the theory. That may not be factual, but that's the theory. And I mentioned earlier there's no set number that says what a starburst galaxy is. But in general, star formation, which exceeds the average by a factor of at least 2 or 3 times the norm, they would consider that a starburst. As far as the H2 regions, you can see the pink regions here. The superstar cluster in the center is the most massive. They think it's an off-center nucleus, but in order to be a nucleus of a galaxy, it must be an old structure, and this structure is only 6 to 10 million years old. So that tells astronomers that that is not the nucleus of a cluster. It's actually a superstar cluster with a diameter of 37 light years, and it's actually a combination of 7 superstar clusters. There's 273 H2 regions scattered across the galaxy. 8 of them are extremely large, and there's only enough gas supply in this galaxy to last only about 1 billion more years at the rate that this star is forming stars. It's going to use up its gas in about 1 billion years, and after that, all of this structure that you see will disappear. There's a nucleated bar structure in the center with a diameter of 31 light years, and they think it's made up of debris from a cannibalistic another galaxy that this galaxy basically ate, that it combined with, that may have caused all of this destruction that you're seeing. These are some of the star clusters and X-ray binaries that are taking place. 129 compact star clusters, 7 super clusters throughout the galaxy, 68 globular clusters, all of which are 9 billion years or older. And currently, the galaxy is right now, it's only forming stars throughout at a rate of about 1.5 solar masses per year. So it's calmed down a lot. But it has one thing that's unusual for a dwarf galaxy. It has what we call X-ray binary stars. These are massive, massive explosive thermonuclear, if you will, eruptions, where it's similar to a nova, where you have a donor, a big puffed up red giant or asymptotic giant branch star, and its material is being sucked off by either a neutron star or a black hole. A nova would suck that material off to a dwarf, but these X-ray binaries are the accretor is called either a neutron star or a black hole, and astronomers are having a hard time determining which is which. They know that these objects are emitting X-rays, which are extremely energetic, but they're having a hard time determining if it's going into a black hole or a neutron star. The thinking is if the mass of the accretor is anywhere from 18 to 25 solar masses, it's probably a neutron star. If it's larger than that, it's probably a black hole. And they can also determine how the energy levels are acting. If it's very energetic, very high, but it doesn't fluctuate, then it's probably going into a black hole because there's no hard surface there. If it's fluctuating, if it's energetic but it has peaks, it's probably hitting the surface of a neutron star, and those are little mini explosions from the surface of the star. So that's how they try to determine if it's a X-ray binary going into a neutron star or to a black hole. But they really don't know for sure what's going on. But that's another work in progress. The Milky Way contains about 200 of these X-ray binary stars, just as a point of reference. NGC 4449 has a globular cluster. It's called CG77. It is right here, and this is a close-up of it. This is visual in amateur telescopes. Looks like a star, but it can be seen, and that's pretty exciting to see a globular cluster in another galaxy that's some 12 million light years away. It has an age of 7 billion years, mass of 1.7 solar masses, and it's not really difficult to see. It would be difficult on a night like tonight, but on a good night, it wouldn't be a problem. It also has a couple of tidal tails. The galaxy is rotating around NGC 4449 and is putting out a couple of tidal tails here due to its rotation. These are connected, but we see them in projection as two different objects. Some of the objects that we have on the list are here. There's a supernova, which is right here. Most supernovae are gone in about 2 weeks. This one has lasted for about 39 to 59 years, which is very unusual. And that is visual. That's a visual supernova in another galaxy as well. It's, in fact, the youngest supernova that we know of anywhere in our Milky Way galaxy or any other galaxy. And it's right here. You can sort of see it there. You can see it better here. But that's a supernova NGC 4449-1. There's a tidal tail tidal stream coming out of this. This is the lowest mass primary galaxy with a verified stellar stream coming out of it, of material. Probably from an interaction with another galaxy. This stream is composed of red giant stars. It is humongous. It's 26,000 light years in overall length. The distance to our nearest star is 4.2 light years. So they give you an idea of how energetic, how massive this stellar stream is. And it has been successfully seen in Mr. Jimmy Lowry's 48-inch telescope. So it's doable in amateur telescopes. Milky Way tidal streams, this is information from Gaia, the spacecraft again. We know the Milky Way formed 12 billion years ago. We now know, thanks to Gaia, there's 170 globular clusters. No longer are we stuck with 150. There's 170. There's 41 stellar streams. These streams come from globular clusters, from massive open clusters, from dwarf galaxies, other galaxies interacting, other things interacting with our Milky Way. And as they plow through the Milky Way, they lose stars. Those stars are what formed those streams. We now know the Milky Way has 46 dwarf galaxies around it, and there have been in the past major merger events, 6 of them. 5 of them historically, plus the Sagittarius dwarf elliptical galaxy that's happening right now. So this is, and these are some of the streams, and this is information provided by Gaia. Messier 82. All of us have looked, hopefully all of us have looked at M82 in our telescopes. But how many of us have looked at the objects inside of M82? Its distance is only 12.7 million light years away. That enables us to see a lot of detail within this galaxy that we might not see in other galaxies. It has an almost edge-on orientation of 80 degrees. 90 degrees would be completely edge-on. It has a black hole, feeding black hole in the center of 460 solar masses. Young stars are born 10 times faster here than they are in our Milky Way galaxy. And the starburst will subside in a few tens of millions of years because this massive starburst that's going on will use up the available gas and dust so that it will no longer be able to form stars. And massive stars seem to be absent from this galaxy. As such, there's little ionization because it takes type O or type B stars to provide that ionization. If those stars are not there, you're not going to see a heavily ionized structure. These filaments that you see, these red appendages, these are ionized regions in the inner 2,000 light years close to the galaxy, and they're expelled out of the core region of the galaxy, namely regions A and C, which I'll talk about. But these are expelled from O-type stars, and it's about 500 of these O-type stars that are providing this explosive event that you're seeing here. The M81 galaxy group consists of M82 here, the big spiral M81, and NGC 3077. These 3 galaxies are actively interacting with each other, and in a few million years, they will merge into one big galaxy, probably one big elliptical galaxy. The starburst within M82, 1.1 billion years ago, had a peak star cluster formation. Then 600, 500, 200, 100 million years, so on and so forth, had different starburst formations because of interacting with the M81. And the last was 5 million years in the central region of M82. And there's been little star formation in the last 5 million years. These filaments, these areas, these smoky regions that you see are the results of the interactions of these 3 galaxies. This loop here is known as Arp's loop, after Halton Arp, who spoke here twice in the past. And they thought that those were, Arp's loop was a product of that interaction. We now know that Arp's loop is in the foreground. It really doesn't have anything to do with the interaction of these objects. It's a foreground object, and it's not part of the interaction of the three. But it's these galaxies that are causing M82 to be as messed up as it is. If we could see M82 from a pole-on view, this is what it would look like: a barred spiral galaxy. But unfortunately, we can't see that. We see it like this, tilted 80 degrees, with the north side receding, the south side approaching, and the rotational structure in a counterclockwise fashion. The nucleus is located 2 arc seconds west of the center, and it has a bar structure in the center, which you can see through here. When you look at M82 in a telescope, if you look critically, this is what you see. This is the central region of the galaxy. These big, what we call knots, are basically open clusters, and they're dying. This particular one here we call region B. This one in particular is dying, but what happens in these open clusters, they call it open cluster dissolution, assuming these clusters are in virial equilibrium. In other words, the stars are basically stable. They're not moving around. The more massive stars are in the center of the cluster. Everything is in equilibrium. But if the cluster loses even one star, it becomes gravitationally less compact. And if it loses more stars, it becomes even less gravitationally compact. But when it loses gravity, it expands. And as it expands, then that makes it easier for other stars to drift off and lose contact with the cluster. And eventually, if this cluster loses around 60% of its initial mass, a lot of times the cluster completely falls apart. It's no longer a globular cluster. And that is happening in this region here, what we call region B. Overall, there's 1,105 star clusters within M82. There are 197 superstar clusters, these very massive star clusters that I was talking about before, with ages of only 10 to 50 million years. Those are very, very young clusters. Our sun is 4.5 billion years old. So a 50 million year old star is a very young star, a baby star. And as I say, they're precursors to globular clusters or blue globulars. We don't know. We don't know where the fate of these yet. But the M82 is just full of this, and you can see this detail in amateur telescopes. The dust amount is not unusual, even though people think this is a very dusty galaxy, but it's not unusual for a late-type galaxy. It's conspicuous because the dust is all over the place, and also because we're seeing it in an edge-on configuration. That makes it appear dustier and dirtier than we would normally think it would be. The center of M82 here is region B that I was talking about. Has 113 superstar clusters, and they've had varying ages of star formation, 600, 100 million years. A very strong episode occurred 20 million years ago, but then it shut down completely. There's been no star formation in this area in the last 20 million years. But however, when you look through a telescope, as we did last night through Keith Rivich's 25-inch, this area just glows. It's very bright, very easily seen. Region A is right here. It's right close to the center. The core, the nucleus of the cluster is right here. And it's obscured by about 25 magnitudes, so we can't see it. But it's sandwiched in between what we call region C and region E, and this is the heart of the cluster, and those filaments that I showed you a minute ago, those hydrogen filaments, orange filaments that were shooting out from the galaxy, they're originating from this area here, A and C, and they're shooting out this way. Region A has 86 superstar clusters, and it's the most energetic part of the cluster. And when you look in your telescope, the dark lane is here, and it's V-shaped. And that V-shaped is easily seen. And once you identify that, then you can identify this, 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 and this pretty easily. The trick is to identify region H. Region H is an individual superstar cluster. It's a 15th magnitude object, and it looks like a star. But if you look very carefully and you have patience and you sit there and you let the sky give you the image, you can see that. You can see a superstar cluster in another galaxy, you know, and it's right next to that dust lane. But it's very visual. I'm going to kind of shorten some of this because it's running over, as I usually do. Region C here is also a very active object. And being very close to Region A, their thinking is that they're combined with each other, but they're not. They're rotating counter to each other. They're rotating in opposite directions. And Region A is offset from the plane of the galaxy anyway. So they're not attached to each other. Another area that you might be able to see on a good night is Region F, which is here. It has a they call it an overluminous region, has a V magnitude of 16, which is not ridiculously faint. And it's located deep within the center of M82 through a hole, if you will, so you're able to look inside the galaxy when you see when you see region F. And you've got all this. Those of you that have handouts, you've got all this stuff that you can work with. M82 has a tidal dwarf galaxy that is a fairly recent discovery. I think 2021. Yeah, 2021. It was just discovered. It consists of multiple star-forming clumps, and it's pretty faint. I don't know of anyone that's seen it. M51. Here again, all of us have looked at Messier 51, but have we looked at the objects, the H2 regions, the Orion Nebula inside of M51? Its distance is a little more further out there, 31 million light years out. But it's a face-on galaxy. It's tilted towards us about 20 degrees, and it's very favorably placed for viewing. It contains many very luminous star clusters and H2 regions, much more luminous than what we have here in our Milky Way galaxy. The largest cluster has a diameter of 70 light years, which is huge. It has an active galactic nuclei, meaning there is a either feeding black hole in the center or a superstar cluster that's blowing out material in the middle of this galaxy. So it's a very active galaxy. 70 globular clusters are found inside. And on the list of viewing, we've got what I call M51A, this region here, B, and C. In my 20-inch telescope, those were easy. I mean, they were easily seen. And this is a blow-up of what each one of them looks like. And region C and region A are equidistant apart from the nucleus of the galaxy. And the reason for that is what they call co-rotation. The density wave, what forms these spiral arms, moves at the same rate out to each of these locations, and beyond that, then the rotation slows down, which is where you get the curvature of the spiral arms. So this is a region of what they call co-rotation, and it's no accident that those clusters, those H2 regions are there, is because that's where that co-rotation ends, and the spiral arms actually start bending backwards at a slower rotation rate. So what does M51 really look like? This is why we're visual observers. This is what it looks like in a photograph. You have to burn out part of the object in order to see the detail. Well, there's an amateur astronomer up in Oregon, Portland, Howard Banish. He drew this with a 28-inch f4 telescope. That's what it really looks like. If you want to look at M51, those of you that looked at it in my 36-inch telescope, that's what you saw. Howard's able to draw at an exceptionally fine, he has an exceptionally fine ability. But you don't, with visual astronomy, you don't have to burn out the center of the galaxy in order to see the spiral structure. The eyes will let you do all of that simultaneously, so you can visually see what a galaxy really looks like, what a H2 region really looks like, what a nebula really looks like, without having to burn out part of it in order to see the faint detail. We can see that visually simultaneously. We can see what these things really look like. Howard went one beyond. He went way beyond. He's got individual star clusters in here that he drew. And all of these he did without a CCD camera, without any artificial means other than his own two eyes and a 28-inch telescope. All of you can do the same thing if you take the time and the patience to look. That detail is there, you know. So the whole idea behind this program is don't just look at a galaxy. Don't just look at M51. Look what's inside of it. Look at the Orion Nebula. Look at the star clusters that are inside of it. If Howard can do it, we can all do it. Maybe. He's pretty good. Messier 101. So H2 forming regions. This thing is ate up with them. There's 10 NGC objects within M101 that are H2 regions, all of which are visible in amateur telescopes. The distance in M1, the distance is only 20.9 million light years, so it's not that far out. It's close enough to be able to see the detail within these galaxies. The diameter of M101 is unbelievably large. It's 170,000 light years across. Our visual Milky Way is about 100,000 light years across. Visually, this thing is as large as the full moon in the sky, you know, so people don't realize that. But it's huge. I mean, this is a huge galaxy. These young massive stars emit large amounts of ultraviolet radiation, which ionize the ambient medium into the glowing H2 regions that you see here, these glowing knots. They're powered by superstar clusters, thousands of O5 type V stars. V-type stars are main sequence stars, and Wolf-Rayet stars. And those O-type stars and Wolf-Rayet stars rival explosive supernova eruptive events, and that's why we're able to see this detail. But here again, what does M101 really look like? This is a photograph. If you look here, all that's burned out. It's burned out because if they didn't burn out with the photograph, you couldn't see this. So back to Howard. There you go. There's the H2 regions. He did this with a 28-inch telescope, f4 telescope, and I thought I had, he didn't do this yesterday. He did this in 2013. He's been at this a long time. But here again, he's not only got the NGC regions, he's got star clusters. Here's a supernova right here. Here's a small H2 region, region B. He took the time to pick out this detail. My buddy Stephen Amira, I've done a lot of observing with Stephen. I've seen him look at an object like M101 for an entire night, one object, and pick out every ounce of detail that's there. And people say, well, Steve, you can't possibly see that. Well, if you look at one thing all night, you can. You'll be amazed at what the stellar seeing will let you see. That's what you're looking at here. That's what Howard has done. He's picked detail out of M101 with his own eyes that these guys do with a camera. So you can see it visually, and that's why I'm a visual observer. I love it. I want to be able to see it with my own two eyes rather than take a picture and look at it. And all of this is there if people will take the time and the patience to look. This is a close-up of some of these regions, and one thing that I was very surprised at when I looked at this with my 20-inch, and you see 54, 47, and 50, you see that little dark lane right there. In my 20-inch, it was a line. It looked like somebody put a black hair across there. And I knew it was two different nebula. If I hadn't known it was two different nebula, I would have never seen that. But I had the photograph, and I knew it was two of them. If I can go back to Howard's, look at the gap he's got there. I mean, that's amazing. It is truly amazing. NGC's 5461. This is an H2 region with a black hole in the middle of it. That's pure raw energy. And one of my favorites is NGC 5471, which is way out here. And that's a controversial object because some people refer to it as a background galaxy. Most refer to it as a star cluster that has maybe a hypernova inside of it, full of blue, very energetic O3 type stars. And whenever I look at it in my telescope, it does look blue. It has a very sharp outer envelope, and it's exceedingly bright. It's the brightest thing in M101. It is 200 times the size of M42, the Orion Nebula. And if you don't see any of the rest of this, you should be able to see this, because that, and there again, it's way out here by itself. So it's either a background galaxy or it's a very bright galaxy that had a very massive star that blew up inside of it, and they call it a hypernova. And that is the reason for the bluish color that you can see. M83 is a starburst galaxy, distance 16.3 million light years away, well placed at the Texas Star Party. These are some of the glowing H2 regions that you can see in your telescope and easily see from the Texas Star Party. Piece 1 in M15, few people have seen this because few people have tried. But I've got a finder chart, and it's fairly easily seen. You start off with these 3-2 stars. You go over here, you make a 90-degree turn, 90-degree turn, and bam, there it is. It reacts to a nebula filter. So you can use a nebula filter with this to find piece 1. Piece 1 is very interesting because there should not be a planetary nebula in a globular cluster. Theoretically, the environmentalists or the stellar evolutionists say that can't happen. I said a minute ago that type A stars last for 1 billion years. F stars last 5 billion years. These globular clusters are in excess of 11 or 12 billion years old. Our G2 type star is only good for about 10 billion years. So when you look at a globular cluster in our Milky Way galaxy, you're looking at dwarf stars. You're looking at small stars that have a life expectancy of 20 to 30 billion years old. So none of them have died so far in our galaxy with 13.8 billion years old. So if all of these stars are very, very old stars, They're too old for there to be a planetary nebula. You can't have planetary nebula are only stars up to about 8 solar masses only form planetary nebula. Above that, they explode in supernova. So the environmentalists or the evolutionists can't figure out how a planetary nebula exists in the midst of these very, very old stars, which should not have a planetary. Dwarf stars are so they're so cool temperature-wise, 3,000 degrees or so, that they're not hot enough to ionize the expanding halo of the star. So a dwarf star cannot form a planetary nebula. Yet there's one in Peace 1, there's one in M22, there's one in NGC 6441, and there's one in Palomar 9. So there's 4 of them that we know of. And in 2019, a man named Dontate in Chile has found 4 more, 2 in Sagittarius and 2 in Scorpius. But those haven't been confirmed yet. But anyway, there's 4 planetary nebula in places that theoretically they should not be. And what they're thinking, and the only way that this could have happened, is that 2 binary stars formed into one star, and that formed what we call a blue straggler. And that one star became a younger star, and then it was able to form a planetary nebula. Those combination of the 2 stars formed a hotter star, and that hotter star could form the planetary Peace 1. That's about the only way that could happen. So theory says. The Trifid Nebula has something called TC2, which is a star-forming factory. There's only 2 protoplanetary protostars that are inside of this. They call it the Devil's Head cometary globule, and these stars are forming inside of that globule in a very cold environment. It has to be a cold environment because that's the only way that the contraction would happen, which is how stars form. This central star here is blowing out radiation, and it's eating away the front of this cometary globule, and it still contains about 27 solar masses. It's lost over 20 solar masses, so this was a huge object to begin with, and but they think that there's enough material in there to withstand the radiation from that star, and that it will form a couple of real stars eventually. But it's a very energetic event, and when you look at it in your telescope, use high magnification, use a nebula filter. You got a black background, and this globule will be blacker on a black background. It requires a little bit of study, but if you see it, you'll see something that few people have ever been able to see. And the last object is NGC 6822, known as Barnard's galaxy. E. Barnard discovered this with a 5-inch telescope, so it's certainly viewable in small aperture telescopes. He also tried to see it in a 100-inch telescope and could not see it at all. So this is a very big, loose, very close. It's only 1.5 million light years away. It's a local group member, has a diameter of 7,000 light years. It's a barred irregular type galaxy. It's got 8 globular clusters, most of which we can see in amateur telescopes. And these are some of the features. This is a supernova remnant here. This is a close-up of it. And you can see the explosive eruption from the supernova. Then Hubble 7 here was the first one that was discovered by Edmund Hubble back in the 20s. Hubble 6 is somewhat controversial. Paul Hodge listed it in his atlas. You won't find it anywhere else, really. I don't know if Hubble actually saw that or not. But there's some others that are seen that are way out here. There's number 1, which is off to the lower right of the field, and then number 4 is out here. The galaxy itself is rotating around its minor axis, so it's rotating like this. So these clusters, these globular clusters, are going around this way in the rotation. And then just real quick, some suggestions. And hopefully we'll get some good skies. You can look at this. Look at Sextans A. You need to get this star out of the field, and then you can see all of these H2 regions here. Look at M99, principally this spiral arm here. It's a very bright, easily seen structure. Most of these H2 regions in here are easily seen if you take the time. And you see 4485, 4490. These clusters here are easily seen, and these are easily seen. This is a little more difficult, but they're not difficult. And one of my favorites, NGC 4631, was the first object that I saw through a big telescope, Larry Beatty's telescope in Oklahoma. And I'm thanking Larry to this day for costing me all this money, because when I saw NGC 4631 in his 24-inch telescope, I almost passed out. But you can see a lot of these H2 regions, these star clusters, a lot of detail in NGC 4631 if you take the time to look. I have written a book on a lot of what I just talked about, plus a lot more, some of it in more detail with finder charts, how to find things. It's based on the Advanced Observing Program for the Texas Star Party, and it's twofold: to get people out to look, but when they look, to star hop, and not use your computer, but find the object on your own. When you do that, if it's light challenged in your telescope and you star hop over to it, you know exactly where in the field it is. And you know what orientation in the field it is. So try to find it on your own if you can. And then the other thing is the education aspect. To teach people what these objects are and what I've been talking about tonight. It's at the publishers now, but I don't have a clue when it's going to be actually published. But again, it's based on the Texas Star Party observing programs. Next year, I plan on having us look at Higgs and galaxy clusters, although if we get blitzed out each night tonight, we might just revisit what I've talked about tonight, because some of the people that I've talked to, there's some interest in seeing these objects, and so I'd hate just to completely miss the whole shebang as far as looking at objects within other galaxies and within other nebulas. So we may do a repeat next year of what we've done this year. But if we do get some nights, next year we'll be looking at Higgs and galaxy clusters, and these things are spectacular. They're small galaxy groups. There's 100 of them. We had Paul Hickson here a few years ago, and he's a very, very interesting individual. So I like to leave my talks with a kind of a final thought. The famous amateur Leslie Peltier, who just recently passed away in 1980, had one of my favorite sayings: "One gentle dose of starlight to be taken each night just before retiring." You know, it's a nice way to end the evening. So these are some of the people that have helped me out along the way in my endeavors. Barbara Wilson, those of you who knew Barbara, she should be here. She is greatly missed. For years, she was my favorite observing partner, and Barbara and I spent thousands of hours together discovering the universe. She's missed. She passed away in 2019, and I hope she's looking in. David Levy, Brian Skiff, Stephen James Amira, Brent Arkinall, Halton Arp, who we had here a few years ago. All of these people have been instrumental in helping me and helping everybody else. They're all wonderful human beings that love sharing their knowledge of the heavens. So with that, I thank you very much. Do we have time for questions, or? We do? Still cloudy outside, I guess. I mean, we can be here all night if you want to. Are there any questions about any of this? Yes? Or what now? Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, many of the globular clusters are creating these tidal streams. And what happens when the globular clusters are very elliptical orbits around the Milky Way? They go way out and they plow through the Milky Way, and every time they come through the Milky Way proper, they leave some of the stars. And that creates the stream. And when they go back, they leave more, and usually the same place. They're kind of like comets. A comet, when it comes into the sun, leaves dust because it's on the same orbit. Globular clusters do the same thing, except they leave stars. Yeah. Anybody else? Yes, sir. Gaia discovered what? We are still a barred spiral. Yes, we are. And we know for a fact, it was kind of a question mark, were one arm coming out of either end of the bar, or were two? And we know now that two come out. So we actually have 4 arms to the Milky Way galaxy coming out of the central bar. Yes. Yes. Right. Yeah, it is. There's really two theories about globular clusters, both of which entail they're very dense groupings of stars, hundreds of thousands to millions of stars, and they either come from the initial formation of the Milky Way galaxy, and they were debris that didn't form into the galaxy proper, just like planets are debris that didn't form into the sun. So these are parts of the Milky Way 12 billion years ago that did not become part of the Milky Way galaxy. That's one theory. The other theory is that they are the core of other galaxies, dwarf galaxies, larger galaxies. Omega Centaurus is a good example. It was part of a larger galaxy that all is left is the core of that galaxy, which by our definition is dense enough to be called a globular cluster. So it either came elsewhere or it formed in our Milky Way galaxy as extra debris that didn't form into the galaxy proper. Okay? Okay, somebody else? Okay? Yay! I could paper 2 rooms with these things. Thank y'all.
If you haven't put your ticket in the basket up front, can you please come and do that if you'd like to be entered in the giveaway? If your ticket's not in there, we can't draw it. Anne's got it right here in the middle. She's holding it up, so make sure you keep one half, do not lose it, and put the other half in the basket. Please and thank you.
Do we have a kid? Do we have a child?
We do not have a
Oh, hi. Yeah, you too. Oh, well.
We'll just pick them. Yeah, we'll bring the basket and then when we bring up a prize,
Let me turn this off.
hand it to Scott. He's going to read the winner. So make sure you pick the basket, okay? Where's the basket? Testing. Testing. All right, let's get this show on the road. We have lots of stuff to give away. Our helper right now is Eli. He's going to draw from the basket and announce the winner. When you win a prize, our runners will bring the prize to you, then take the prize to the back and sign a statement so we can tell the vendors who won what they gave us. Okay? So, Eli, the first number is, and everyone watch your tickets. The first prize is the Night Sky Almanac from Firefly Books. And that goes to Carl Jones. That's number 317-83120. Oh, all right. Come on up. Oh. Make sure they take the prize back to Ann in the back. Right.
Hold on a second. Just slow it down a bit. I don't have the fucking book with me.
You don't have the what?
The award book.
Oh, to write all this down?
Yeah. It's up.
Okay. All right.
Slow it down.
So take that back.
Do you have his ticket?
Yeah.
Okay. Just sign the back of this for now. Okay,
Next prize. Next prize is a pocket sky atlas from Sky and Telescope. And the winner of this is, Eli? Jerry Gardner? I hear it. Come on up. Yep. Oh,
listen to your pocket sky.
okay. Congratulations. Thank you. And take that to the very back, okay? You want to hold an artificial star in your hand from...
Did we get it already?
Yeah.
I need him to sign the ticket.
Here's the ticket.
Yeah.
And he signed it. All right, okay. The next prize is from Hubble Optics, an artificial star. There it is. And the winner of the artificial star is Gary Dowdle from Fort Davis. Here you go. Okay. Okay. All right. Just take it to the back and have him sign it. Okay. Okay. Thank you, Doug. I don't know. Let's see.
What did you do with his ticket?
Right here. The next prize is something we'd all want on these dark nights. That's a power tank rechargeable red flashlight and power bank. And that comes from Celestron. And the winner is Don Bates. Don, are you here tonight? That's ticket 317-83295. Oh, sorry, Don. Yes. So we'll try again. This is still dealing. We're still dealing with the power tank rechargeable red flashlight, and the winner is. We don't have a name. We have a number. 317-83239. If this is your number, stand forth. And what's your name?
Nick.
Yeah.
I feel like this is going to be the one.
You think so?
This is the one.
$50 gift certificate from Astro.
Next, we have a $50 gift certificate from AstroZaft. AstroZap. And the winner is Don Sally. Don, are you here? Yeah. Congratulations, Don.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. And this is it. This is interesting. All right, this is from Masters of Pix Insight, a certificate good for one live or recorded workshop, a $35 value. Well, a workshop. So, Eli, the ticket, please. Again, a nameless presence, but we do have a number. That's 317-83217. Look at your tickets. Oh. Okay. Okay. Good. We'll give you.
Looks like a match.
It's a match.
Okay, Keith.
Okay. Oh, we have to give him the workshop. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
From Firefly Books, Observer Sky.
Oh, now this is a real prize. This is the Observer's Sky Atlas from Firefly Books. And the winner is nameless, but the number is 317-83229. Jose? Okay. Okay, hold it. We have a Celestron lens pen for optical cleaning, a revolutionary new cleaning compound to unique soft clean the tip of your mirror. So, mirror. And the number is 317-83093. I'll read that again. 317-83093. Oh, well done. Excellent. Here's the ticket.
Celestron, a power tank.
Oh. All right, this is another power tank from Celestron. It's a way to power your telescope. And the winner is, thank you, Eli. The winner is nameless, but the number is 317-83195. Oh, we have a winner. one of these special little boxes. Yes.
Never know what's inside.
Yes, thank you. This is from Celestron, a 15 millimeter flat field 6.5 eyepiece. And the owner of this eyepiece is nameless, but carries the number 317-833-30. One more time, 317-833-30. Oh, sorry. Sorry, you? All right, we'll do. Oh, okay. If you have won a prize in the past and you've not yet gone to the back to sign the vendor slip, please do so. And all future winners, when we hand you the prize, please take it to the back so they can have that statement signed for the vendors. So we'll read this number one last time, 317-833-30. Oh, sorry. Oh, they're eating their hearts out right now. Let's try Justin Weidman. Yeah, Justin Weidman. Okay. Let's take. May I have this?
Yes.
Okay.
Wait a second.
Yeah. Wait.
Justin, come on over here.
Good job. All right, now this one is
Hey, this is the prize we've all been waiting for, a certificate.
Oh.
Bob's Knobs.
And now the prize we've all been waiting for, something special to all of us, Bob's Knobs. Collimation thumb screws for your telescope. And the lucky winner who carried on a fine tradition of winning Bob's Knobs is Jacobson. Let's try the number. 317-833-16. Ah. Yeah, thank you. Yep.
because I was about to say.
Aurora, okay.
Aurora. Her name is Aurora. Here is the ticket. Next, we have another $50 gift certificate from AstroZap, the choice of serious astronomy enthusiasts. So a $50 gift certificate. And the winner of that is a number 317-832-06. Look at your tickets. 317-832. Oh.
83206? Yep.
Yep, that's it.
Come on over here, sir.
All right, tell me what's supposed to stop shuffling.
Okay.
A throw or blanket from an anonymous donor. It's a fleece blanket.
Okay, thank you. All right, you ready? All right, yeah. This is for your comfort. It's a mink plush, softness protected, downy blanket to keep you warm on these observing nights. And the winner is Roland Potter, number 317-832-02. Someone's moving towards the front. Sir?
Somebody coming to collect this.
All right, that blanket has a home. Yep.
Okay,
Thank you.
that's it.
Next, we have from Celestron another rechargeable red flashlight and power bank. And the winner of that, in a moment of suspense, is Dana Lindstrom. Dana, are you here? We have another one of these Hubble Optics artificial stars. It's not a real star, it's an artificial star. And the winner of the artificial star is, notice how it gets real quiet? Eric Fisher. Eric, are you here to claim your star? Yeah. We have from Celestron another pen-like instrument. It's used to clean your eyepieces. It features a high-quality retractable brush which removes dust and other contaminants. Certainly nothing that we have experienced with here on the ranch. And the winner of this pen to clean your eyepieces is a number 317-83058. Excellent, excellent.
Masters of the Universe, how are you? Congratulations.
From Masters of Pix and Sight, a certificate good for one live or recorded workshop. $35 value. So it seems educational. And the winner is going to bear the number 317-830-76. From Celestron, another power tank, rechargeable red flashlight, and power bank. And the winner is number 317-83163.
For the ones that are like a lot, I'm gonna do a good.
Good.
Like, oh,
Hey, we'll get you to start imaging.
can I announce this one?
No, not yet. Holy
I
smokes.
need 2 hands for that bad boy.
All right. This is a big gift for a big crowd. It's from Celestron. It's a power tank, extra large capacity portable power pack. It's enormous. Thank you, Eli. The winner of that enormous power pack is number 317-83201. I think we have a winner. Give that to Mike.
Okay, now this is the grand prize, so I guess we got to put all the tickets back in there.
Oh, okay.
And it's an Messier Plus, which is a little computer for controlling your camera and telescope. And you mount it on your telescope, and it controls your camera and your scope.
Okay.
So, but it's from Cloud Break Optics.
Okay.
You can tell them, you know, it's the grand prize. We're going to put everybody's tickets back.
Okay, we're going to put all the tickets back in. All right, this is for the grand prize. All right. Eli, who's been helping us, has assured us he's been mixing the pot real well, particularly for the grand prize. And the grand prize is a computer that you put on your telescope that controls both your telescope and your camera. It is given to us from Cloud Break Optics.
ASI Air Plus.
ASI Air Plus. It weighs like a grand prize. So, the ticket, please. And all the tickets that have been used before have been put back in here for the grand prize.
The tickets will go on.
Okay. The suspense builds.
Mixing them up well, folks. For a truly random draw.
All right. The ticket, please, Eli. This is a well-mixed ticket. And we have a name. The first name is Joyce. The second name is Barrett. Yeah. Let's all give Eli a round of applause. And thank you all. Bill, is that it? All right, that concludes this evening's festivities. Thank you. Good night.
Up the hill, but just make sure you don't run over any
Serenity, you may have heard of it. So if you want to stick around, we'd love to have you. Don't forget also part 2 of the Great Texas.
We're very pleased to announce our new StarSense Explorer Dobsonians.
Same bat time.
The telescope tube features a larger aperture than the other StarSense Explorer telescopes. It also has a 2-inch Crayford focuser that accepts both 2-inch and 1 1/4 format eyepieces, and also has a custom pointing knob to help you precisely aim the telescope at your target. Both the tube and base have carry handles at their balance points, and of course, the exciting StarSense Explorer dock. Simply place your smartphone in the dock and launch the app. Choose from the best objects to view, then just move the telescope to follow the arrows to your target. When it's ready to view, the bullseye turns green. It's easy to do because of the patented StarSense technology.
Hi everyone! We hope you'll enjoy the presentations we're bringing to you virtually from the Texas Star Party. We wanted to thank everyone who has taken the time to make this event what it is. TSP is a 501c3 nonprofit organization, and it's made possible every year by the help of people just like you. If you like these presentations and would like to help further the Star Party, you can throw a few bucks or a few thousand in our virtual tip jar by donating today. And it's tax deductible too. Make sure to share these videos with your friends, any clubs you're a part of, and most of all, remember to have fun. We hope to see you in person next year.